All right, I don't see anybody else in here, but I'm just going to make the recording and hopefully people will benefit from it. And we'll set up another one another day. So, I'm Tom Foote from Buffalo Cymbalsmiths. I've been exploring B20 bronze from various perspectives. One of them was to make jewelry out of it because I had quite a bit. And then it sort of mutated into restoring cracked cymbals. I came across a particular micro welding unit while I was in school, and it just made sense to try to pursue this. So I did get a research grant from New York State to look into it, where I analyzed um, 5 decades of bronze material to find out exactly what it was. And fortunately, the results were that bronze, B20 bronze anyway, is literally 80% copper and 10% tin. Sorry, 20% tin. That would be 90%. Sorry, 80/20. 80% copper, 20% tin. And it has some pretty unique qualities to it. One of them, okay, one of them is um, that it's quite brittle and it does not, if you've ever done any metalsmithing with other materials like silver or copper, that you can anneal the material and make it softer and move it around and shape it pretty easily. Whereas B20 bronze is really difficult to manipulate dramatically. So without using some assistance. And it does change the properties of the material when you apply a lot of heat. So we try to avoid as much heat as we can, although when we are micro welding, we have to introduce some heat. So what we're trying to do is use as little heat as possible to get the most permutation in the welding. So I have a cymbal here that I'm going to do a couple little bit of work on. I've done some preliminary work on it. This was sent to me by a shop unnamed. Oh, that reminds me. This is not a sponsored thing. The machine that this comes from, they're not involved in this whatsoever. As far as like, they're not like funding this. So this is just me. Anyway, let me get back to where I was. So I have an item that came from a client that's a business. So I mean I do work for individuals and businesses. I'll do work for anybody. At this point, I'm happy to do it. So I appreciate your patience while we get this sort of started up here, and I'm really enjoying working with this particular unit. So I'm sure there are other units around. So there is a link that I have posted, and where this particular unit comes from, Sunstone welders, or it's actually an Orion welder. So, first of all, let me show you what this thing looks like. I'm going to just move this because I can't switch things. So this is what, oh, you can't even focus on it. This is what the unit looks like. It basically looks like a desktop computer, um, like an old style tower design. So, and it has all different kinds of settings up in here. I don't know if you can really see those various settings, and we can go over this in future things if people are interested. So I've worked out what are the better settings for the various thicknesses of material, and let me just go ahead and show you the other part of this. This is the headpiece, which is a microscope. This is the anode where all the business happens, and there's also a secondary um, piece here that's used for clipping onto the material. So let me set up and do just a couple little micro welds on this item, and the camera is going to actually be mounted on the actual unit so you can see. Sorry about the perspective, it's kind of weird, I know, but until I figure out how I can do this a little bit more properly, this is how I'm doing it. I use an awful lot of repurposed items. I also try to keep things in perspective as far as I'm trying not to have to buy a lot of different stuff if I can. I try to repurpose as much as I possibly can. It's a big proponent of this, which is really one of the reasons I've gotten involved in doing this, is that I can do, fix things and make people happy, and that's the primary thing. So again, this is, I know, difficult to see because it's so bright. So this particular crack runs from here, oh, you can't see that, sorry, from here all the way across. So this is an arc crack. So there's a couple different kinds of general cracks, and we'll go over those in just quickly right now, but then, future sessions we'll look at each different kind of crack and, how I apply the repair to it. So hopefully you can hear me all right. If you can hear me okay, just give me a thumbs up. It looks like Kelsey Berry is there. Thank you, Kelsey. That is a nice shirt. Yeah, it's my favorite one, and it's a vintage one from you-know-who. Thank you. Anyway, I'm going to just go ahead and do one little micro weld on this. So the first step that I do is line up the edges of this to make sure that they're flush. So yesterday I just did a couple little tiny welds. I don't know if you can see those. Probably can't, of course. Oh boy, that's bad. So I did just a couple tiny welds to align things. So I usually go and do those first. And so what I'm doing is I'm taking this connector here. I'm going to connect it to the metal. So we need to make a circle of current so that we can get this arc pulse. So this doesn't really hurt, but I do warn you that you need to be careful about viewing this directly. So it's a welder. So I mean, you could ruin your retinas doing it. So what I generally do is I either wear a mask, a special, not mask, goggles for it, or I just use this particular unit has an automatic shutting mechanism for each pulse. So I'm just going to do one pulse to do another line up here. Let me get lined up. And I always forget to do is put the welder on. There it is. Now the welder's on. Again, these procedures I'll go through more thoroughly. I just want to give people an idea. So you heard that pink. All right, so that was a small, very small, tiny little pulse. So I'm lining up these edges. Now these feel really good. So once you get things lined up, you can go and really just go for it, basically. Not go for it, but do the micro welding that needs to be done in each area. So when you look through the microscope, you can see the crack very, very clearly. I'm going to show you an image through the microscope also in a few moments. But I'm going to do just a couple pulses looking for the end of the crack, and it will extend further than you think. So I usually go a little bit further than what it actually is, following that same line, and then I just start stacking micro welds. And this technique takes a little while to get used to, but it does work. So the heat that's being put in here is concentrated in a small area. So yes, that area that's being micro welded is going to be more brittle than if it was not, but it will be put together, and the surrounding area is not affected by that brittleness. So I'm going to stop there. So I just did about that's about a little less than an inch, and I'm going to just move so we can take a closer look at this. Move the camera, so bear with me here while I just move it. All right, back to the happy shirt and the happiness here. Hi, I'm back with my shirt there. All right, I don't know if anybody's watching this, but it looks like there is or isn't. I don't know. Anyway, so here is the initial results of the micro weld. You can see that little spot there. So this continues on. So I'll continue doing that whole line. All right. And then what I'll do after that is do the same thing on the top side. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and just continue with this weld on the underside, and I'm going to see if I can show you this through the actual microscope reticle. Reticle, man, that's a cool word. Reticle. All right. let's see if I can do that. I'm going to try to put this camera actually through the ocular here. There it is. Okay, that's pretty cool. So you can see what I see. You can see what I see. So if you can see that, I know it's bright. There we go. That gives a pretty idea of what the lineup is looking like. So that's what we see here. So it's quite magnified, and you can really see the details of it. So the main thing is being in a comfortable position while you're doing this. Okay, so I'm going to put this in again in another spot. So I'm going to bring it down a bit and show you how I set up for each of these. That's not bad. I don't like that spot. Let's go over here. Let's try it this way. Yeah, that's better. Okay. So you can see I use my lap almost exclusively to sort of settle the piece in the right spot so it's in a stable location. Sometimes I will use an edge of a table also to give me like a 3-point stance. And I need to be relaxed. So if I'm not in the right spot and relaxed, I have a tendency to tense up. And we do not want to be tense while we're doing this. We want to be comfy, 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 and relaxed. That's going to be different for everybody, I'm thinking. All right, so I'm going to put, again, this is the connector so I can get a loop in that current, and that's what we want. So I'm going to go ahead and continue on here to see how things go. So you see that light, that bright light? You can look at it through here because it's not going directly into your eyeballs, but in person, you would not want to be looking at that because it will damage your retina. So just like any welding technique, we're trying to do a stack of coins, or stack of dimes they call it, or stack of nickels. And there are some challenges that might occur, like you're going along and you mess up and go way over to the side, you know, well, accidents can happen, but just try to make it clean and smooth. So the other thing to take into consideration as you're adding heat into this material, there is some expansion that's happening to the material right at the weld. And the idea of doing this is to try to get the wave to go right through that material like it did before, so we get a nice crashing sound. Oh, you know what I didn't do? I didn't give you a sound sample of this beforehand. I should have done that before. So this is it's still cracked here, so you'll hear some of the material. You can really hear that area. I mean, this area right here, still hear it. So yeah, that's crazy. All right, I'm going to continue on here. Let's see what's going on. Kelsey, are you still here? That's cool if you are. Justin, thank you. Michael Lewis, thanks for coming out. This is exciting to be able to show people this. And I really want to teach some people to do it because, well, I'm not brand new. And I'm just one brain. And sometimes it's not a very good brain. And I need other people to be involved in this so that these techniques that I'm doing can be, first of all, learned and then expanded upon. Because I know there's better answers than what I have. I don't have everything. That's for sure. So I do have some pretty good technique right now because my background is actually mostly working with my hands. Originally I was in school for jewelry making and metalsmithing, and I worked in that industry briefly as a stone setter, and I was getting paid 10 cents a stone to do those activities. And I couldn't make a living on it because I was not fast enough, and I found it hard to do that repetitive work and keep myself insane. I mean, at the time anyway. I probably would be okay with it now, but in my 20s, I just didn't have the patience for that. I think I wanted to create. That's why I went to learn how to be a jeweler. So anyway, I had to make a living, and as the story goes, I took my grandmother to get her eyeglasses fixed. And I started talking to the optician that was there, and he said, hey man, you could be an optician in a couple of years really quick. And you seem like you're reasonably intelligent, which I told him I don't know about that. But so I did that. I actually went back to school, and in 2 years I had my New York State license as an optician. I worked in that industry for almost 30 years. I enjoyed it until the industry changed. And if you're old enough, you'll know what I mean. If you were in the eyeglass market years ago, you used to go see mom and pop places. You know, opticians, you know, worked as had their own little shops, and then of course the big companies came into big retail companies came into place, LensCrafters, Pearl Vision, all those other ones, America's Best, and that was okay, but then it changed again. Hope you don't mind me just doing all this all the way. I like to keep things personal as far as how I interact with individuals, and it became less individualized. People were buying online, and so then I started working with nursing facilities because they were underserved, and I felt that was important. Uh, anyway, so I've finished that. That didn't take too long. I don't think. I don't think it took too so long. So this leaves a pretty hefty carbon thing going on here. So that can be. I use a brass brush or a soft nylon, heavy nylon brush to brush that stuff off. I don't want to scratch the surface, but I mean you can even remove this with your fingers if you want to go crazy. So and I haven't even done the top yet. The top surface, you can see some permeation of it, but I go over this all. So if I hit this lightly, it'll give you an idea of the sound change. It amazes me every time I do this that, you know, it goes from crap to beauty again, you know. And this individual who owns this is going to be really happy, which is, you know, why I'm doing this, really. I mean, I'm not making a lot of money on it. I mean, I'm making a semi-living on it, although I am retired, quote, retired, whatever the heck that means. I don't think that's really the case. So I'm going to do, I'm going to answer some questions that people asked here on the chat. Thanks for being patient. You know, again, this is new to me as far as the interaction, doing live streaming, you know, other than performance. I mean, I've done that before, but I'm going to just talk a little bit here. Make it look reasonable. All right, so let's see. Love learning about this process. Do you ever use a welding helmet with a filter to be able to view your weld as you are going along? I do have a helmet that I do use, and sometimes I do use it, but I also have to get magnification going on because this is so small that you need to have, at least I need to have that magnification. You know, we're talking about little tiny puddles of welding of 1 to 3 millimeters. I think this particular setting that I've used is somewhere about 1.5 millimeters. So they're tiny and very, you know, precise. You know, I mean, this is used in the jewelry industry for in lieu of doing soldering or brazing. And I love the machine. I use it all the time for doing other things. So I do make jewelry. If you are interested in that stuff, go to my website. I think I've got maybe 30 pieces that are up there to be sold. So anyway, this is just the initial information that I'm bringing out. And it looks like Justin would love to do a class in person. Justin, yeah, message me afterwards, and we'll, you know, we can work something out. So I do have a Facebook group that I've started for educating about just general cymbal smithing stuff. I mean, I'm relatively new to cymbal smithing. I really didn't start until about 7 years ago, and there's a lot of other people who have gotten into independent work, but my need was mainly to understand the material, how you could move it, what you could and couldn't do to it, besides the micro welding. And you know, certainly it takes time to learn those techniques, but I have the basic techniques down. I have made cymbals from blanks in the past, and they were wonderful and super time consuming, and I wasn't willing to spend that time to do it. Plus, I don't think I'd ever, you know, make enough people happy, which I'm trying to do, as many people as I can, make them happy. And I just didn't have the time to really to do those activities. There are many that are doing it very, very well, and I applaud them, and I like to look at their material, their work, because it inspires me. So I mostly make weird stuff. I try to find ways to take existing items and make them more useful and more desirable. One of my favorite ones is to take an old 20-inch Zildjian 70s ride, which usually are super heavy, you know, like 4,000 grams or 3,500 grams, and remove material from them on my lathe, and then do some hand hammering on them to make them unique sounding. So I love doing that. And you can certainly, you know, uh, you know, seek me out if you want to learn some of those techniques. Again, I do have a Facebook group set up that's a Buffalo Cymbalsmith School. If you do a search for that, you should be able to find it and request to join. Right now, I'm not charging anything to show people this stuff. You know, I did put in the comments today, if you want to put $5 out to me, that'd be great. You know, I certainly could, you know, just like everybody else, I could certainly use the money for gas, um, and food actually. Um, but it's not absolutely necessary. You know, the most important part is that these techniques are shared, and that others can learn from it and hopefully get involved in it. So I'm going to just take a look and see if there's any more questions here before I start to do a little craziness, because I want to show you some craziness too, because that's really what I do. I do crazy stuff. So um, let's take another look here. All right. You know, I've had a few people come on. It looks like I've got 7 people on. I'm not sure who the individuals are. I probably can see that. Wait a minute. What does it say? Oh, people are coming in and out. I see. I get it. Anyway, this will also be, I think will show up on my feed, and people can look at it afterwards. So anyway, this is, I had this silly thing out. I just wanted to show you kind of some of the weird stuff I do, because I'm not just about doing micro welding. So I've had this leaf of Zildjian A piece, and I, you know, tried to mount it and do all sorts of weird stuff. So this morning, I I discovered that it's kind of like a saw, and it's got some great sounds come off of it. So that's pretty cool, huh? So I'm going to definitely explore this a little bit more. I think some of you might know what that song is. Anyway, I think I'm going to end this now. I hope everyone enjoyed it. I'm going to try to do another one in a couple weeks. I've invested in some software that will make it a little bit easier for me to broadcast stuff. It's probably going to take me a couple weeks to learn it properly. So stay tuned with my site, and if you have any questions, you can certainly text me, or rather send me a message, and we can start a relationship. And thank you very much. I hope everyone has a great day. Enjoy the weather if it's good where you are. If it's not good, then enjoy the indoors. All right. Thanks again, everyone.